Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. Today is December 28th, and we're going to do our update on natural gas. And so we've had just 2 trading days left in the year. 2 trading days left in the book. So that means we're going to close the yearly candle, the quarterly candle, and obviously the monthly candle, right? And so let's talk about natural gas. If you haven't seen the previous videos, definitely take a look for a link in the description. I've recently started covering natural gas, probably have like 6 or 7 videos. And so I started covering it right around here when we started this sort of consolidation. We've now obviously broken down from that consolidation, and I talked about the fact that obviously when this breaks, whether it's to the upside or the downside, it's going to be a trending move for a little bit. And this is what we got. And obviously I didn't know if it was going to break to the upside or the downside. But you know what levels to watch, right? And once we broke that, we've been trending lower since, and you can see the downtrend very clearly. We did this, that was a lower high, and I keep warning people, be careful of these lower highs. Don't get sucked in by these lower highs. Then we made this lower low, another lower high, lower low. What do you think this is, right? It's another lower high most likely. Doesn't mean it's a guarantee. I don't know the future, but we're in a downtrend, and so in a downtrend you get lower highs before lower lows. And we add cycles to this. And again, this is the daily chart that we'll start, and where we're basically looking at price action. How long does a full circuit, if you want to use a different word than cycles, usually last? And definitely take a look. Tons of content I've created around understanding cycles, and there's nothing mystical about them. A cycle is just just a way to quantitatively categorize a trend, right? How long was the rally? How long was the decline? So in this case, the rally was 22 months. That's what these numbers at the top means. And then the low came on, or excuse me, this is a daily chart. So it's 22 days. These are trading days. And the low came on day 30. You can do the math on that, right? So 22-day rally, 30-day cycle means an 8-day decline, right? So this rallied for longer than it declined. This whole period was 33 days, you can see here, right? Again, that's what the numbers mean. The numbers at the bottom tell you the length of the cycle. So cycle goes from swing low like this to swing low right there. And so this one rallied for 5 days. Look how feeble that was. And then just completely rolled over and collapsed. You did have this period here where we chopped around. This is essentially a big bear flag of this move and then lower. So that takes us to this cycle. We topped out on day 5. Does that seem familiar to you? Now, obviously, this is a different structure, right? This was just move up and then a rejection down. This was a move up and then this was a move up. So it gapped up. And this is right around after I made a Twitter post about, the potential for, a big move down. We gapped up 10% and then just kind of sold down, almost fill the gap, and then just chopped around for a week before, again, collapsing. And I still could see there's still probably another 25% downside. So I'll say I see this going to 360. And again, that's not a prediction. Think of it as more of an expectation based on the fact that we are in a downtrend. And so this period lasted 30 days. This period lasted 33 days. This was a 24-day period, 15-day rally. What is that? 9-day decline. 9-day decline. This period was 37 days. This period was 39 days. All that to say, we're on day 16 of this current daily cycle. Again, its current top is day 5, similar to this. So I'm not saying we're definitely going to have a 33-day cycle or a 30-day cycle or a 24-day cycle, but it is reasonable to expect that the cycle is going to be longer than 16 days, right? Or 15 days. This isn't our low. Is it possible that price could reverse from up here? We could get some kind of freakish, huge green candle, like something like this, let's say, right? Of course we can. There's no reason why we can't. And then we get it followed up by this, and then another one like that, and then all of a sudden, wow, we're back. We're back making our ways to taking out these highs. Of course, this could happen. You have to ask yourself though, what is the likelihood of that, right? Not to mention, we'll be able to see it happen in real time on lower time frames, but that's how you want to kind of think about it. We're in a downtrend until we get a reversal, and we won't get a reversal until we have a swing low. these cycles just give you a sort of estimation of like, oh, well, this hasn't even been declining for that long. It's only been 16 days. We've only been in this cycle for 16 days. It's been about an 11-day decline since we topped out on day 5, more or less, right? Is the way you think about it. Very tactically, so today, again, as I said, it's December 28th, so it's Wednesday night. This is essentially going to become the Thursday candle because it's 9 p.m. here. It's just an inside candle so far, right? Inside meaning it is inside the range of the previous day's candle, which is in this case Wednesday, right? Today, the day we're recording. And so, to be clear, I'm just drawing these lines for you so that it's clear here. Excuse me. And this is a long candle, which has a nice upper lower wick, which means we had a rally on a lower time frame, and we'll look at one of those lower time frames. But the high for this candle is $5.83. The low is $4.46. In the previous video, I talked about how you can think about the 560 area being resistance, so like this candle. So now the goalposts have moved, but they've moved lower. That's how a downtrend works, right? You're making lower and lower swing highs, and so your bar of needing to exceed actually gets a little bit lower, but just getting over that bar doesn't mean it's bullish necessarily. So my point there is we would need to see the candle cross above this line, right? Like above the high of this. So again, that's $5.08. We're here right now, currently trading at $4.73. And of course, the low is $4.46. And so my expectation is that we eventually break that low. Doesn't necessarily have to happen tomorrow. We have a couple days left to trade in the year. We'll see how that kind of closes out. What I'll say is, this massive downtrend, and of course, we did have those little lower highs. And it's important to note, anytime you see big upper wick like this, it means the candle was green at one point, right? So this was a green candle, and then it went red. Was a green candle, then went red. Was a green candle, then went red eventually. More of a doji. Point being, there were little rallies in here on lower time frames. They just didn't last until the daily time frame, right? They got snuffed out essentially, right? But you would expect, after this like hideous move down, let's just see what it is in percentage terms. Like let's say from this wick even to that wick, it's already 30% down, right? And so you imagine we could get a bounce for a few days, 2 or 3 days before another lower low. And if we just kind of try to handicap this a little bit, what would a 30-day cycle look like? And then we talked about this in previous videos. I'll just show you quickly. So it'd be something like this. That's why this is here. It's not a coincidence. So imagine we get a low here sometime around late January. Totally possible that we get a shorter cycle as well. And so we get our low earlier. Maybe we get exhaustion from just being down so much. But being down this much, you expect, some kind of... So I drew that like more micro sort of downtrend, but you imagine this is just like one straight shot lower. So you imagine at least something like this, right? Before something like that, right? Like is your, I'll just redraw that. And we'll look at the weekly chart because that's going to be more relevant, right? So you can imagine something like this, right? As a model for what kind of happens. And I'm thinking this level ends up being something like $3.60. And I'll show you why I think that on the higher time frames. And again, that's just based on the fact that we were in a downtrend. So this is your weekly chart. Same exact principle in terms of the cycle counts, except this is a weekly chart. So in this case, we topped out on week 4 of the weekly cycle, and it's currently week 9. Now, a different way to read this is actually, and that's the thing about this, is that, like, this is open to interpretation. You really only know for sure in hindsight, which is why I always say it's about the price action, not the cycle count. Who cares what you think the cycle count is as much as are we in an uptrend or a downtrend or in some kind of range, obviously, because prices trend or they're range bound. Those are the only two things they can do. And so if you think about this candle here, if this is week 9, then we have quite a few more weeks in this weekly cycle. You can see this previous weekly cycle was 26 weeks. And this really long one, this one was really long at 41 weeks. So 9 weeks would be a really short cycle. Like, let's say we even just have one that's like 20 weeks, right? That takes us out to... Oh, wow. That's interesting. So that would take us to like sometime in March. And so you imagine we would get a daily cycle low and then we get another daily cycle, which would also be left translated. It would also have an early high. The other possibility is that this is week 25, so that this isn't actually our weekly cycle low, and this is. But I mean, you think about this rally, this is pretty convincing. What's our percentage gain here? And again, this is where you get kind of pedantic. Right, that was a 60% rally for this weekly cycle, like what potentially is a weekly cycle advance, right? That lasted just 4 weeks. So either way, you've got significant downside into January. That's another 25% down to get to 360. Maybe a question of, are we going to probe even lower levels? And that's your 360 right there, right? Call it 360 area, right? 3.5. I mean, you can see how price is just kind of, this is just kind of calling price like a magnet. And you can see it on the higher time frames. It's almost even more clear. This is your monthly chart, and as I've talked about this in the previous videos. Let me turn the color of this over so you can see it. That is a long-term cycle top, right? And to put a finer point on it, again, this cycle approach, it works on all the time frames. It's really just a way of saying how long have we rallied on this time frame, and therefore when are we likely to start to see a decline to complete the cycle before we start all over again, get another rally, etc. There's nothing mystical about it. It's just how price moves. So this is rallied for 26 months. So 26 months. And so that's a pretty long rally. And so it's not surprising that, so this is month 27, 28, 29, month 30. So you could think of this as, I mean, this is more or less a 3-year cycle, right? Like potentially, right? So we're on month 30. So maybe a low around month 35, 36. So you can see how, and I had drawn this arrow here because this was a swing high at one point. You can see, or excuse me, this was a swing low, this candle, because we had a high above here. That's obviously no longer the case. We've made a new low below here. And that would make sense. That would be consistent with the idea that we're in a long-term cycle decline, which is to say, just to put a finer point on it, we're in a downtrend on the monthly chart. Do you notice that? We came down, made this move here, and when we did this, what is this? It's a lower high. And now we're making that lower low. I suspect we make a significantly lower low down to around the 350 area. And then it's going to be a question of, do we bounce and then seek out lower lows from there, or is this bounce something that is more sustainable, right? Like it's more of a long-term cycle advance, right? That gives you more juice, right? So we're gonna have to see. But the date with the 350 area seems like we're kind of on a speed course to that right now. It is my sense. And again, we've rallied for 26 months, so it's not surprising that we're rolling over here. And it's possible that we're going to get our long-term cycle decline soon. It would be kind of early, and having a month decline of only 4 months is kind of interesting. I mean, you can see the other significant swing highs on this chart, like this one. Look how long this rally is. I don't even have to count the number of months there. It's obviously more than 4 months, right? Look at this decline, obviously more than 4 months. Look at this one. And I'm not saying we have to have one of these protracted declines that declines for a long time, that goes for a long time and also declines by a lot in price. But, there's certainly, it's reasonable to expect more bleeding than what we've seen here. And 360 is definitely, again, just looking like a magnet right now. So it'll be a question of how we react once we get down there. So that is our update on natural gas itself. And I will just remind that I'm also doing some videos on some natural gas names. So I did a video on Cheniere that is already out, so definitely take a look for that one. That's ticker symbol LNG. These things are a different way to invest in natural gas that is maybe a little bit more risk averse. The TLDR on Cheniere is, it may have made its long-term cycle top, and in this case, this one rallied for 32 months, so even stronger than natural gas itself. What about EQT? Let's just do a quick preview on these guys, right? Why not? This one looks like it made its long-term cycle top in September, and that was at month 31, right? So you start to get a pattern. It makes sense. Natural gas is rolling over, including the equities that actually make their money from natural gas. So I'll do a separate video to go into more detail there, But that just kind of gives you a sense. What about Chesapeake? That's another one that's talked about a lot. Yeah, that one is just now making a swing high, right? So this candle marks the high. Super important pattern to understand the concept of a swing high. So this candle marks the high. The low of this candle is 94.04. So we're just poking below 94 here. And so again, I believe this is the start of a bigger decline. For Chesapeake, first area to probe will be the, certainly below 90. And then you start to talk about getting into like the mid 80s and possibly visiting, below 80. Like you can see all these levels are like were price clustered in the past. You could see a world where it becomes a magnet. So that's what I'm watching out for. We'll put out a separate video, talk about these in more detail. But that's the TLDR. Caution in the natural gas space, whether it's the commodity itself or the equities that actually move it. So we'll leave it at that. That's our update on natural gas for December 28th. And we'll definitely continue to watch price as we continue this downtrend towards $33.60. Thanks for watching.